company would go on this journey, and not just about, we don't get into the details on the technology or any of the technologies. We don't talk about AI or data analytics or any of this. It's really around the project and how a framework can help companies to be able to implement a plan to digitally transform part or all of their process. And that's what we want to do. And we called it simplified because that's what it is. It is, and there's a framework there, and I'm not going to get into the detail of the framework, but you start out with a digital maturity assessment with Inu Global as part of this process. And as Padraig has already said, it will be facilitated, the program will be facilitated by Core Story with 4 in-person sessions across different locations in Ireland, starting with Stryker and finishing in Coca Cola Ballina. And we have engaged with IMR as part of this as well. So we really want to bring the whole ecosystem together for companies as well. So you can actually get, that information about, but what about this and what about that? And we've also brought parts of the program together to help companies and people within companies to be able to pitch their ideas, and also the management around change management, because when you're implementing digital into your company, you need to be able to manage that change. So it's very much around all the different parts. Yeah, I worked in Intel for 15 years, and we were digital, and you had to be able to produce a processor, you had to have digital technology as part of that. But within the medtech sector, that is definitely something that wasn't there at the outset. But as different companies have moved along this journey in a very highly regulated environment, there are really, really good examples out there. And I think one of them this morning that's on our call that will talk to us about their digital transformation journey is Stryker. And I think we have some really, really good examples here today. We also have Brian from Mergon on here today, who will talk to us about being involved in the whole development of this program. So if you have any questions or you need any type of support to engage with this program, please contact us at the Irish Medtech Skillnet. So, Padraig, I'm going to hand back to you from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Really good. And you mentioned there questions. So I would ask you what area of interest you have. So everybody that's on the call has some area of interest. You're obviously interested in the program, and more than likely interested in digital transformation broader. So what's the challenge, or what's the thing you're looking to find out, or looking to bring to your business or to you personally? Just pop it into the chat there. Any question, any thought, concern, it'll really help us to kind of focus some of the conversation we're about to have. So please go ahead and do that. So now I'm going to introduce a panel. Anne's introduced the flavor of the program itself. And one of the things she's highlighted is very much sort of, I'll say, ground up. It's people in the business doing it. And we've got a number of them here on the call, so we want to have a little conversation with them to get some insights and hopefully inspire us maybe a little bit. So the panel we have put together is, we've got David Higgins from Stryker, and he's the Manager Automation and Digitization at Stryker. So welcome, David. From Coca Cola, we have 2. We have John O'Brien, the Lighthouse Director. Now, not a lot of people know that Coca Cola had a lighthouse. Actually, they don't, just in case you think they do. No, they don't have a lighthouse, but I'll let John explain what the Lighthouse program is. And Philip Rossiter, who's the Director of Operational Excellence at the Coca Cola Ballina. And then finally, we have Mergon, Brian O'Donovan, who has been involved in shaping this program. Brian is the Director of IT at Mergon. So welcome aboard. And I'd be really interested to get a flavor of your journey in digital transformation. We're all at some stage of it, and we've probably all learned a lot. But I'd be interested in terms of your journey to date within digital transformation, and where you're at with it, and how important it is, and what kind of value is it bringing to the organization, and maybe some of the challenges. So could I maybe start with, I'm going to start with you, Brian, if that's all right, at Mergon.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Park. So sorry, Hort, there's a few questions in there, but I think you know, the journey is that I started in Mergon 14 years ago and I was the IT guy. And Mergon, while they always believed in IT and invested in technology, they didn't really fully understand how to utilize it yet. So I kind of break down the journey into three phases, which was I was the IT guy and there was a bunch of hardware and software inside the company. And the first thing I did was I did an assessment kind of informally of where the company was at. And I spent about 12 months just building the infrastructure back to a really good place. So we built a strong network, good security, put in virtualized servers, and just had it kind of ticking over. So that stopped the firefighting on a daily basis. And then it was looking at the business and understanding what their pain points were. You know, you're obviously the name of your company is the core story, and I think the challenge then became telling the story to Mergon to kind of stand up in front of a board and say, look, you think you're doing great for the last 10 years. You have been investing, but you know, maybe that investment hasn't been in the right way. You haven't fully understood what business challenges you have. So I went out to the factories around the world. I looked at what Mergon's pain points were, and I came back and I told the story. And the story was, I wrapped it up in a phrase of wouldn't it or IT, wouldn't IT be cool or wouldn't it be cool if, and I just laid out what the pain points were, and we had loads of them. And then I put a solution in front of the business, which was we needed to invest in an ERP system. So we did that. We then put a lovely business intelligence dashboard on top of it all to help us make decisions. And you know what actually happened and where the value came from then is the company has grown. So we've doubled our turnover in the 8 years since putting in the ERP system. We've acquired a factory in the UK. We've built a really large facility down in Mexico. The existing plants in Ireland, the Czech Republic, and the US have all grown. And now we're kind of at the start of that journey again. The circle of life starts where we're trying to understand what our pain points are. And just to finish up, the pain points that we've identified in recent months is that we're no longer 3 standalone manufacturing facilities. We're now a group of companies, and our next journey is going to be to put systems in place to manage a group as opposed to 3 individual companies.
Right. Thank you very much. It's interesting, your journey there. Just, I'd be curious, when you started out, I know right now maybe you're establishing your digital transformation challenges. How do you turn 3 global into one maybe unified looking organization? But in those early stages, was it sort of very project orientated, or did you have a sort of overall strategy for the organization?
I don't think so. So we've done a bit of a reflection in recent months, and the reflection was that looking back, we identified probably the plant that had the biggest challenge, and for us at the time it was the Irish one, and we put a solution in to fix that. And then it just worked out that same solution, we then went, we'll do the same thing for the US facility. I suppose looking back, part the reflection was, did we do the right thing now that we're a larger group? And the answer has come back that we feel we have done the right thing, but that it's still, but we have more to do.
Yeah, great.
We have more to do because of the success of the project, and the company has grown since then.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Brian. Great. So maybe it'd be good to get David from Stryker, if I could ask you maybe to give us some insights on your journey.
Sure, no problem. So I'm currently working in the Limerick plant for Stryker in the automation department. I know Brian is in the IT space. I'd class myself in the OT space, and you know, from time to time there's a lot of button heads there between IT and OT to get that digital transformation over the line. So I'd say if we looked at Limerick at the moment, and if you looked at digital maturity, I'd say we're coming up on the intentional phase of maturity. We haven't always been there, And I suppose as an organization, we would have started our digital transformation on separate paths. So like Brian, our IT department would have had their idea of a digital transformation. Our automation department would have had our idea of it. So while we wanted new automated systems, we wanted connectivity, we wanted data analytics, we were getting a lot of kickback from IT on cybersecurity, network architecture. So it was kind of like the chicken and the egg. And it's only in recent times when we sat down and we said, okay, sorry, was there a question there?
I don't know. Actually, I think that might have been.
I'd say someone's just unmuted.
Yeah.
So sorry, just to go back there. So we had to sit down and we had to discuss, I suppose, a site-wide strategy, playing on, okay, what's the mission statement and the goals and the objective of the site as a whole? And I suppose the convergence then of IT and OT, and how do we get a digital transformation that works in both worlds? We had started on separate journeys. It was really good to kind of get together in the same space, because from an automation point of view, we were trying to change the landscape on the production floor. New automated technology, new data analytics, high levels of connectivity, data mining, dashboards, and so the business could make data-driven decisions. So a lot of work went in, and it's only recently to kind of get a site-wide strategy, because what we found was we were nearly pulling against each other in terms of digital transformation, because we had different views of what it should look like. So now that we're kind of, we're all in unison, I would say we're definitely in the intentional phase. We're driving forward. Brian, like yourselves, we have a lot to do. This is a really, a broad roadmap, but it's something that we're working together with. We're really enjoying it. It has transformed our business here in Stryker Limerick in terms of making data-driven decisions and working on facts, live dashboards, being able to get all the data, OE, scrap, runtime information from all our equipment has been phenomenal. And we've put together a model that definitely there is other Stryker plants starting to lean into and adapt.
Very good. Thanks very much, David. Some interesting questions there jump out to me on who should lead a digital transformation sort of initiative within the organization. I think it varies from organization to organization, and just that challenge, I think, where there are lots of different initiatives in the space going on, and maybe there isn't the level of coordination often that should be there. So it's an interesting point.
Yeah, and I think on that one, it's about collaboration. It's about stakeholder engagement from the top down. It needs to be driven from the top down. And once you have that stakeholder engagement and you have a proper vision and roadmap and everybody's bought into it, it makes the journey way simpler. Yeah. Unfortunately, we had started many years ago, I suppose, before digital transformation was even a topic.
Yeah.
But then once this space became real and you reflect, yeah, we were very good, but we could have done this better.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, David.
Bart, can I just jump in on just on that point there? I think just when you say it needs to be driven from the top, David, sometimes executives get worried going, oh, this is going to take a lot of my time. I think you need the sponsorship, certainly from the top, and you need to say that they're driving that agenda. And then it's down to, you need to work collaboratively, as David said. And what you need the business users to sponsor it as well, because it never gets over the line if IT or engineering are pushing it. It needs to be a pull. So, and then with, I think, IT supporting and driving it, because they, from my perspective, we know how to make the best use of technology, but certainly you need sponsorship from the top, and that they're driving the agenda, and then you need business to take ownership of it and say, and they want it.
Yeah. And that's one of the challenges, I guess, is to make sure business has the appetite and the confidence in digital transformation, maybe to as you say, pull rather than wait for it to be pushed at them.
Yeah, and sometimes, part for you, it's the story. Like, how do you build that story to convince the business and make them realize they need it, or they'll be left behind?
Yeah. And so Coca-Cola, then John and Philip, I don't know who's taking the lead on this one, but what's your stories today?
Yeah, I mean, I guess ours is slightly different than what the two guys spoke about. So ours is it's a combination of two things. It's definitely a corporate-led transformation, and it's something that is taken very seriously within the company down. And the section that we are in which is called commercial product supply. I won't bore you around that, but we were the division that was, I suppose, the target group that we said, let's get it right within CPS. So we had that clear sponsorship, we had that mandate. But I'd say locally then as well, I will put my parochial hat on. We're one of 20 sites based globally, and I think we would be one that would want to put our hands up to be kind of at the forefront of, I suppose, anything, trying to be innovative and trying to put, keep our site at the head. It's one of our, I suppose, site strategies. So, but anyway, going back, so globally there was a site strategy, and it was kind of based on 6 pillars really. Our first pillar, and some of it is a bit of a repeat of what the guys spoke about. First one was we had to have a clear vision and roadmap. So we have a clear vision and roadmap of how that's going to be rolled out, which included, I mentioned those 20 sites. We decided to have 3 lighthouses. So we were going to dedicate some resources. We had a central resource team, which were going to bring those IT and OT gentlemen together, so they weren't clashing heads too much. But we had a central group. We also had data analytics, digital architecture, those type of things, all grouped together centrally. But then in the 3 lighthouses, we had, like John, who are my colleagues on the call, he's the lighthouse director for our site. And he was the first to take the lead. Actually, we were the first site to go. But we have sister site in South America and in Asia. And both those 3 lighthouses. And I suppose the strategy was to put additional resources into those 3 lighthouses. And that's where we would develop our, proof of concepts, develop these ideas, try to bring them forward, whether it be IT/OT infrastructure, whether it be data analytics, whether it be automation, whatever platform we were looking at from a, I suppose, transformation perspective. And then we would try and rapidly, where possible, replicate those on the other 17 sites or the other 16 sites. So I suppose first thing, we had that clear vision and roadmap. The second thing was we clearly wanted to have as I think guys mentioned, it had to be value to the organization. So what was the value back proposition? So they were the first 2, I suppose, parts of what we call our strategy. The second part was we knew that we couldn't do this on our own. So we needed to have a comprehensive, I suppose, technology stack. So we're going to have to work with various different, there wasn't going to be one, we're an SAP ERP system, but we knew there wasn't going to be one solution that was going to fit all. Second to that, we knew we weren't going to be one partner wasn't going to be able. So we have a series of partners. So we went through a process to develop who were going to be the partners that we could work with here, for instance, in Ireland. But one of the criteria would be that they would somebody who could be able to support this globally. That just as an example, one of the criteria. So that's 3 and 4. The last 2, I suppose, what the guy said, we wanted to drive this from the top. So we wanted to communicate, wanted to develop success stories. We wanted that clear sponsorship from the top, and then people have been driven on the ground. So that happened. But I suppose the last point is we had to develop some significant capability. So we had to rent in some of that capability. In other words, we had to work with some consultants to help us. Then we had to buy in, we had to hire people. And then, of course, we had to develop our own. So it ended up being the development of what we reference is our digital academy. So we knew we had to upskill all our associates right through our plant in Ballina and to on. So I guess I suppose to answer your question, Porrick, it was a very deliberate strategy. It's one of the key pillars we have in our division and within the Coca. And now we would be considered to be within Coca-Cola as be the leaders from a digital transformation that the other parts of the business are trying to replicate.
Right.
So that was our approach.
Yeah, great, very interesting. And when you talk about the capabilities, they were the human capabilities, were they? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
and I presume,
referred to as a digital academy, Porrick. So it's lots of modules that can be done in bite-sized chunks, like micro credentials type things, that people can develop their skills, whether it be data analytics, how to interpret data, various different problem solving, various different items that would be needed on that digital journey.
So was this all done as a digital transformation journey, or was it broader than that? Was it?
From our perspective, it's tagged and labeled as our digital transformation, but I think you could almost take the words digital out of it and just say part of our transformation journey, really, because we have a transformation of. We hired at the time. I say the company decided to hire his VP of transformation, really, for our group. So and he would have led that and put a team around them. So that was the goal. So digital is the tagline, but I guess you could just say transformation full stop.
Very good. Yeah. Great. I see we have a question popping up there. Were those micro credentials developed and taught in-house or externally? Quite specific question.
Yeah. We developed them with external partners, but they're being taught internally. So we did need some support initially because we hadn't got the skill, but now all of those skills are now contained within. We have a digital capability team now that services those 20 sites. It's a small team, but yes, we have that capability now ourselves.
And it strikes me your transformation was a bit like it was coming down from on high. There was a global initiative in the organization. What level of sort of local initiative did you have? Were you given sort of a very, here are the areas you need to be digitally transforming in, or did you have a lot of leeway in?
It's a bit like what you described, that that's what's going to happen through the program, Porrick, and not trying to sell the program for you, but yes, first thing we had to do was do our own maturity assessment to identify where we were. It could be as simple as our IT/OT infrastructure. Had we got the infrastructure in place to be able to do this? And secondly, then was through that maturity assessment identified, I suppose, a number of opportunities. So we prioritized those, developed use cases, and implemented them. So it was from that maturity assessment that developed the list of opportunities to go after.
Right. And in terms of driving success, any tips or insights you've gleaned, things like looking back, and this is a question I'd like to ask all the other two panelists as well, but like looking back on your journey, what would there be anything you do differently or that you've learned that you've started to do going forward? Or
I suppose I can jump in there. As I said there, with our journey, it was kind of started individually. So from an automation perspective, we had a vision. We wanted a lot of our legacy equipment connected to our IT infrastructure. We wanted to start investing in data and forcing the business towards making data-driven decisions. We were naive in terms of, cybersecurity, security, what constraints putting legacy equipment on our IT network has, what the dangers of it were. That slowed us down quite a bit. And, if there's any advice I'll give people, it's really that collaboration of all the key stakeholders in the journey and ensuring that, everybody is bought into that vision, from the sponsors, from all the key stakeholders, IT, cybersecurity, security, OT, network architecture. I think we've all touched on it. And you know, one of the mistakes we made is approaching it from two different perspectives without that upfront collaboration. But you know, we've learned a lot from that journey, and you know, it'll make us stronger going forward.
Great. Any other thoughts on that? Learnings? Brian, maybe have you any? I know you kind of mentioned a few, but
we're always learning. Or I think the big, so like, you know, we look back and when we implemented the ERP system in our Irish facility, we were all going on a journey together, which meant we were all learning together, and we were learning about the business on a day-to-day basis. So something we did really, really well was we used to take the implementation team off site, forget about your day job. You're working on this, and we used to do it a lot, and we did a really good job on it. Mistake we made then was when we were putting the same system into our US site, we kind of landed in going, we know how to do this, we'll just tell you how to do it. And the problem that we ended up with was they didn't feel like they owned it, or they were part of the journey then, and it took a lot longer for the system to get embedded in there. And we kind of had to go back and redo it with them to get them to take that ownership. So bringing people on the journey is important.
Great. And Philip or John, any?
Yeah, well, there's 2 points, I suppose, Padraig, that I've come, and maybe John can add to this one. One is that I suppose one of the things we learned along the way is that great to have persistence, but I think it's great to know when to give up as well. So I know we learned this term, which I think resonates with me, is people getting stuck in pilot purgatory. So they don't give up. This is going to work. I'll make this work. I know it's there. I know it'll work. And then just spending too long and saying, well, you know, maybe sometimes just to cut your losses and say, okay, we'll leave it for now. We've done a lot here. You know, maybe it's just not for us for now, and knowing that it's just not there, because sometimes we can waste too much time on some things that we just, maybe it's our pride or otherwise gets in the way of letting it go. The second thing I would say is, I'm not trying to rob any of your thunder, because I'm sure you're going to come in again, is the ability to be able to bring people with us though. Because it's by far, I think, the number one we've had, I'd say, since we got going. I think John might help me here. I think we get together once a year, these transformation workshops, maybe twice a year. And the number one thing that comes up every time is change management. Every time. It's about, you know, how can we tell the story, get people to want to come with us, bring people with us, and go on. And that could be like the user journey experience or whatever that is. But it's the number one theme that gets spoken about no matter when we get together. So it's the ability to be able to bring people with us.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Just before, I'd be curious and we're going to move on a little bit now to a little bit more detail on the program, but I'd just be interested in terms of where you're at in your journey now, and what are people valuing? So, you know, for example, David, you mentioned the sort of data insight and that sort of visibility of the dashboard, but like when you kind of step back from it, what are people valuing? And it might have a slightly different value set from, we say, people that might be more frontline or in the business versus the leadership. Well, it's almost like if you met somebody in the pub tonight and said, was that worth doing? What's the big value you get out? What's the thing you'd say? What's the one thing that you're getting out of your initiatives?
Yeah, I suppose from the implementation team, it's seen the plant react to the business growth and being able to, you know, to change our systems to support that growth. And, you know, you spoke about, you know, the frontline people. You know, we came from a place many years ago with very, very manual systems. Any data we could extract was days old. So really, really are reacting. Giving people eyes really is the way I see it, to see exactly what's going on at that exact moment in all our processes, in all our automated systems. And like people ask me, you know, how do you measure success? You know, of course, the business is growing, But, you know, how do we measure the success of our digital transformation? And it's, for me, it's if we walk in around kind of our operation engineering offices, anything like that, and you see dashboards up on desks, and planning meetings are held around the data that these systems are providing the business. And then I always say, you really know how good they are when you turn them off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you make an update to anything and the data isn't there anymore, and, you know, telephones start blowing up, emails start flying.
Yeah.
And to me, that's really the success of these systems, is when you take them away, you know, people just can't do their jobs anymore. The plant can't operate. And you know, then you've succeeded. And you've succeeded in making, you know, it easier to make data-driven decisions for the business.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, David. Yeah, that's a good point. And either or, Brian, how would you articulate the value of it?
The value is clear from the growth of the company, but I just think that like on for everybody's day-to-day job, I think the access to real-time data is just taken for granted now. We relatively recently acquired a company in the UK, and they're Mergon work in automotive, healthcare, and industrial, three very different sectors. And the company we acquired in the UK is heavily tailored towards industrial. They have no systems. They don't know what stock they have. They don't know where it is. They don't know what's happening on the machines. And it's when you bring somebody from Mergon there and say, this is exactly how all the other sites were 8 years ago, it's a shock to them. So obviously we're in the middle of a project now to put that ERP system into the UK. But the other one, it's the cultural shift. Everybody now thinks digital first, I think, nearly, and if they don't have it, it's frustrating to them. So they come looking for it. I'd say we just don't have enough resources now to do every project that would like to be done, and we're trying to prioritize that.
Right. Thank you. Anything?
Yeah, I better say something and prove I have a voice, Porrick.
No pressure, John. Yeah, but you better say something.
No, very good, excellent, and it's very similar, very aligned. I think for us, real success for us is the vote of confidence in our factory. It's the biggest concentrate site in the Coca Cola system in the world. So for us, it's about the future and modernization as well. So we've had a sizable injection of capital since we started down this journey. Multiple millions, which is great, and I think people can resonate with that, because ultimately we're looking at the next generation coming through. I also align there with David and Brian. Obviously, Philip, is the whole transparency that we have on live data and making, you know, data-based decisions and making it more objective as opposed to the passion and the jersey, because, you know, squeaky wheels will always get the attention, but I think it brings a lot more objectivity to our business decisions. And I think for us, the success is, you know, we got through COVID, through all of this. We maintained supply across the system, which is very important from our side, like every company, to maintain, you know, we're here to make money, obviously. So I think it is something we probably the best year ever last year, 2024, after probably 5 years into the journey. But we still have a lot to go. We're under no illusion. We have a lot to go. And I wouldn't overemphasize the importance of change management, communication, and accountability. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, John. So guys, that's really good insight, and I feel like we're only scratching the surface bit. So for those of you that do join the program, you're going to get exposure to these and other industry experts who have, you know, are somewhere on the journey. And what I'm gathering from that discussion is you're never where you need to be. The journey is just continuous, but as long as you're on that journey, you're going to be learning, and we can learn from each other and get better, and there's huge value from what I'm hearing. And so a couple of things that were mentioned there, I was really happy to see story being mentioned, close to my heart, but also the importance of you know, starting in the right place, doing the research, understanding where are we on the digital transformation journey, and what's unique to our business. You know, while it's all very interesting hearing what other people do, you know, there's no one bullet. There's no, you have to understand where you're at and what your capabilities are, etc. And you know, we had a look through this program, shall we say, the 4 days that Anne introduced. But I want to talk very briefly, and we're lucky we have the team from InnoGlobal who are going to be involved in the program in bringing in the digital maturity assessment, and this is helping organizations understand where they are at and bringing some structure and data and insight to that, so they can make really good decisions on that, on the strategy, and ultimately impact a successful execution. So I'm going to invite Noel from InnoGlobal maybe to talk through the digital maturity assessment that will be used pre getting on to the first day of the day together. So Noel, over to you.
Thank you very much, Pádraig. So good morning, everybody. Great to be on the call. Fascinating to hear the different insights from three very different companies coming at it. So it's and that's in line with a lot of our experiences of working with companies across Ireland and Europe in relation to this. First of all, let me give a very brief overview of InnoGlobal. We are a team of leaders, scientists, engineers, data analysts and programmers with years of manufacturing experience in both executive and strategic roles. We're based in Sandyford in Dublin, but we're across all of the country. We're invested in the three central pillars critical to the advancement of manufacturing, that being education, technology, and this whole digitally embracing culture. And again, the reason why and what behind it all is our approach is to increase industrial competitiveness and sustainability, which we feel strongly, and I think most people feel strongly, is critical to success as an organization, success as a country, and success as a European Union. For my own sake, I have over 30 years experience in manufacturing industry, in the medical device industry, primarily with a company called Nipro Healthcare, which, as you know, was bought over about 10 years ago now by a company called Jabil Healthcare, producing drug delivery devices. I would have worked across Irish sites, I would have worked across global sites. And over the last number of years, I've been working with InnoGlobal, working with them on their digital transformation offering, and a lot of it around this particular digital maturity and sustainability assessment that I'm going to maybe walk you through a little bit, and we're going to use as part of this course here. So if you just want to jump to the next slide, Pádraig, please. So this is just one extract of data from our digital maturity and sustainability assessment. The background to it is that we started working with the Industry 5.0 Lighthouse Network Group, made up of a lot of pharma, some medtech, IDAs, DMI, and other organizations. And the whole point of this was these were a group of like-minded companies who wanted to understand what was involved for digital maturity, and equally what were the common areas across different companies in an objective type of manner, so that they could share resources, so that they could maybe move things forward in a quicker way, and that's proven to be the case. So the assessment itself, the background there again is that for most organizations, when you think of digital maturity, when you think of Industry 5.0 or 4.0, it's just such a broad landscape, and companies go, well, what does it mean for me, and where do I start, and what do I look at? And we're strongly of the belief you should start with some sort of analysis of where am I today, and what do the numbers look like, how good am I, what's important, what's this all about? And equally important then, it's about looking at, well, where do I want to be? Where do I want to be into the future? Now, for this assessment, as you can see, we look at scoring across 10 different areas, across 4 in the primary value chain, across 3 in the secondary value chain, and 3 in the sustainability area. So it covers all elements of a site or manufacturing organization's set up. We work with the teams on the site as a guided, assisted and guided self-assessment. But not only do we look at where they are today, and we look at this across multiple different concepts and technologies, not only do we look at where we are today, we look at where we want to be in about a 5-year time frame. And the reason for the 5 years is, like we all know, we can all blue sky and have beautiful looking factories in 30 years' time. That's really just pie in the sky. It's not realistic. Equally, there's no point in trying to work out where you want to be in 1 year time, because some of these projects, some of these programs, you know, they're iterative and they take time to implement. So we look at a 5-year horizon in terms of our target setting. So companies, having done this assessment, find out, well, this is where I am in the different areas against the different concepts and technologies, and this is where I want to be. And it's actually very interesting when you do analysis of the difference between where you are today and where you want to be in 5 years' time. That gap number is quite informative, because if the gap is high, it probably says that, well, I want to be higher than I am. I'm not as high as I want to be. You probably need to be thinking about putting resources and so on into that to make that a reality for you in the context of what we're doing. So in terms of this particular program, so we've rolled this out across multiple organizations across Ireland and across Europe. However, for this program, we, having spoken with Anne and the guys in the MedTech group, you know, we're strongly of the belief that, you know, to get where you want to go, you need to know where you're starting. And you need to broaden and look at all the different areas within your organization. So we have modified and developed this digital maturity and sustainability assessment to allow us to fit it into this program. So before you start the program, we will sit with you and take you through the assessment in a lot more detail. But equally, we will have calls with you and your team, i.e. being the participants on the program, for about 2.5 hours before the program starts, and we will go through each of the areas. We will come up with scores. You will have that report, so you will have some insight based on your own organization starting the course. And then, of course, once you have that, then we can look on that as another data point into helping you determine what are the most important programs, what are the most important projects, what are the biggest issues you need to resolve, and so on and so forth. I just thought it was interesting when I heard the guys talking about the different companies, and, you know, it rings so true to us in terms of our assessment that that whole people, culture and skills side of the organization is critical success. It's critical things around change management, things around having a unified vision, having a clear action plan or a roadmap, things around understanding what are the skills I have and what are the skills I don't have and what do I need to do. Again, I was delighted to hear, you know, when the guys in Coke were talking about some of the skill side of things. Yes, he mentioned AI, yes, mentioned data analytics, but equally mentioned very important things like problem solving, leadership, because they're critical, again, to how well you are, how successful you are in relation to your journey. And the other point I'd like to make just is that, you know, we cover lots of different areas. We cover 42 different concepts and technologies on this particular program across those 10 different areas. However, not all areas are equally important to all companies. And that's very, very important. You know, for example, we would have worked with some older, large, some older pharmaceutical manufacturing sites. And for them, for example, because of the nature of the site and the nature of the process, sometimes automated transport, for example, had very little relevance. And that's perfectly fine. Yet if you go to an automotive site in the morning, you'll find automated transport all over the place. So it's important that every company is different and has different priorities. It's very important that you understand that up front. You consider all the different areas, and then you, based on your scoring, you can allocate and prioritize resources and where you need them best. So ultimately, this is all about preparing you with information and data to feed into your site strategy and roadmap and specific projects to move you forward. And that's a very quick whistle-top tour around our digital maturity and sustainability assessment, but we think it's a critical element of this particular program. Will feed into it as we go along. So that's it from me, Pádraig.
Thanks very much, Noel. Appreciate that. So I'm actually just going to maybe talk a little bit just to the overall project journey. So you know, this is a slide you saw earlier, but you can see here the pre-work is what Noel has been talking to, so which really sets you up with information and insight specific to your industry and your stage of digital transformation. And it'll really help you make some smart decisions and bring others on the journey. But then if you look at the 4 days together you'll have, there's, you know, you're coming in, and that first day, Noel and his team will be involved with this. And we'll be looking at how do you, you know, make decisions and choices. What should you focus on first, prioritize your resources, etc. And then we're into the second day where, you know, again, you're working with peer groups, but we'll have experts coming in at each of the days to bring some insights. But, you know, by day 2, you're quantifying the opportunity, you're building the business case, you know, you're starting to plan and budget. By the third session, you're now looking at how you engage key stakeholders on the journey. You know, how do you get decision and go, no go versus, you know, the stakeholders you need to make the journey successful in the long run. Building the cross-functional teams, and we've got, again, people coming in. And then finally, we have the execution piece. And, you know, we've got Prison coming in to bring in some insights around the funding and how you structure. And we've got expertise from the IDA and Enterprise Ireland. So you've got a journey which I think escalates you into successful digital transformation, and set of experts coming in, as well as, you know, some of the people you've got some insights on the panel today. You know, each of these days is on a different site. We're getting different people taking us through their stories. So it's a learning journey, but very much an active development of strategy and execution at the end of it. So I really like that approach that Anne and her team have developed for this program. We're coming in now to an opportunity to have a bit of Q&A. So if anybody has a question, I'm going to throw it out to you. We'll have a little look at what's come up on the chat, but I'd really love, I know some of you had been having some questions. I'd love to hear from you on maybe what questions you have about the program, or even if you have a question for the panelists. Don't all shout together. Anybody put their voice out there?
Padraig, I'm going to actually kick it off. One of the pieces, I suppose, that I'm interested in, and it is there on the last day as well, and I'm glad that we have captured it as one of the parts that has come out very clearly from an industry perspective is around the change management side of it. And it came up, and I know Philip mentioned it there, or John maybe it was, but just how easy has it been to be able to manage the change that's happening in industry, right? Because it's the first thing that comes into people's heads when they hear it. I mean, I was at a workshop on AI last week, and they said, oh, lots of people are going to lose their jobs, but always with the introduction of digital technology, that has been something, and people do end up changing jobs. So I suppose just to get a sense from the industry people on the panel, how that has been managed successfully would be great.
Yeah, maybe I'll just jump in there very briefly. So what we were very based on all our principles on lean, and the digitization of lean is probably another way of looking at it. And I suppose when we do our assessments and understand where is the pain point, or what are we trying to resolve, what's the use case we're going to develop. So for example, digital performance management or a digital schedule, what might that look like? So ultimately we have a problem and we want to solve it, and how we're going to go about it. I think one of the key, I suppose, attributes that we've used is the whole user experience journeys, where we actually get all the stakeholders in a room for a number of workshops. And we all sign up then to having a very clear charter on what's required, who's going to commit to it, if there is funding required, etc. And very clear timelines, as Philip said earlier. If we're going to fail, let's fail soon rather than continue on. So I think that's a big aspect. And then after that, from once we all sign up to it, that's the journey we take. And then, you know, we have to, I suppose, deliver the outcome. Now, sometimes the outcome can be quite challenging if it's going to be a reduction in FTE in some respects. But ideally, it's looking about upskilling those FTE and giving them an opportunity to work in another function. So that then kind of takes some of the sting out of it. I also start some of my workshops is that, you know, we're using digital every day in our life, and we're very happy to use it, whether it be Ryanair, Aer Lingus, booking, banking, car, motor tax, everything we use, it's great when it's a benefit to us. We have to understand what's in it for me. And I suppose, we started off with this view of having the future of the factory at stake for the 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, the next generation. So it's all around the sales, the messaging, and ultimately why we're trying to do this. But there'll always be naysayers and there'll always be challenges. But I think the proof is in the pudding is that if you do roll out a use case and you have some early wins, it really plays into the narrative. And some of our greatest goats became our greatest gardeners. That's a phrase that Philip was on the phone. He said, I forgot about that one. But, you do have to focus on a couple of people that, are skeptical. And from once you turn those very quickly, you get a very positive outcome. That's kind of my experience at a very high level.
No, that's great. Absolutely. What did goats into gardeners? I like that.
Well, seemingly